Weapons. So Weapons is the brand new Kreger. What's his name? The director of this movie is called, I'm just getting it up on IMDb, Zach Kreger. There we go, Zach Kreger. That's a great name for a horror movie director, or even a comedy director, I guess. Zach Kreger. So Weapons is the second film, the sophomore film, the difficult second album of Zach Kreger. His first film was the Airbnb one, which is called Barbarian, anagram of Airbnb. Is that what it's called? Is that what it's called? An anagram? If you mix up the letters, it spells Airbnb. But yeah, Barbarian. And that was a wonderful, crazy, energetic mystery thriller horror film. Basically, that was had funny moments, terrifying moments, gross out moments. It was just a great horror film. Really, it had everything you'd want. And so this is his second movie. So I'm going to go into spoilers a little bit later. The first half of this review, there's going to be no spoilers. But in the latter part of the review, what I'm going to do is, because this film is told in a non-linear fashion, you know, a bit like Pulp Fiction, a little bit like Magnolia, for example. So, you know, like the timeline is all messed up. We're going backwards and forwards and backwards and sideways, and, you know, we're doing all these things. So what I thought I would do, because I haven't seen anyone do this yet, is at the end of so the second half of this this review, I'm going to explain the whole storyline in a linear way, like how it happens chronologically, basically. So you can sort of understand, if you're watching it from beginning of the story to the end of the story, this is how the events sort of happen chronologically in the film. And obviously that will go through beat for beat, spoiler for spoiler, the whole storyline. That will go through the whole movie, basically. So that is huge spoiler territory. That's going to be at the end, but that is going But before I get to that, I'm going to be doing what one might call a non-spoiler review. So this is the new Julia Garner film, starring Julia Garner. Julia Garner might be the MVP of this year. At the end of this year, I think what I'm going to do is like the MVP of the Hollywood, I guess, including series, including movies. It could be an actor, an actress, director, writer. It could be somebody who's just really put in great work for that year. And Julia Garner might be a front runner for that, because she started off with Wolfman, which was really good. That was a good horror film. I enjoyed that horror film. It was exciting. It was scary. It was original. Was it my favorite film of the year? No. Was it in my top 10 films of the year? No. But good film. Just a good film, you know. Standard film. Julia Garner was then also in Fantastic Four. Rebirth, is that what it's called? She was great in that. She practically stole the whole film. She was so good. And now she's in Weapons. And what do I think of Weapons? I think Weapons is just incredible. And that's partly because of Julia Garner. She's really great in this film. So very non-spoiler synopsis that I'm reading from IMDb. When all but one child from the same class mysteriously vanish on the same night at exactly the same time, a community is left questioning who or what is behind their disappearance. And that is all you need to know. Because, yeah, the film does have some twists and turns, but it's not, you know, it's not like the most twisty turny film I've ever seen. But the joy of this storyline unfolding, because it's done in a non-linear fashion, you're getting bits of information throughout the whole film that are just unfolding the picture for you. And it's just great. Like, questions are getting answered in the second scene and the third scene that you didn't quite get from the first scene. And it's just like, oh, I see. Like, it just unfolds beautifully. Zach Kreger wrote a wonderful script for this film. Just so, so good. I've thoroughly enjoyed this film. I absolutely loved it. The performances in this film are top notch. I have to say, they are top notch. I was speaking about Julia Garner just then. She is wonderful in everything she's in, but yeah, she was great in this. Josh Brolin, he was so good to watch in this film, since Thanos I haven't seen him in much, and he was great. Alden Ehrenreich, the guy who played Han Solo in the Solo film, wonderful in this. Really thought I wasn't going to enjoy his character's little storyline, but I loved it. And then you've got Benedict Wong, obviously from the Marvel universe. It's really good seeing him just putting in some solid work. And then Austin Abrams, he's the guy from Euphoria, who I just thought he was excellent. And then potentially the best performance of the whole film was from Amy Madigan. And Amy Madigan just is chewing the scenery in this film. He's so good to watch. She's so good to watch. She's just incredible. I'm not joking. Every single performance in this film was strong, really strong. Believed every single one of them, and I was just there on the ride with them. Some people are talking about certain potential. So there's two things I don't really agree in the public discourse. One is that there's a certain in-universe logic issue. So that is something that I heard John Campier on the John Campier, is it called Movie Talk or whatever? He was talking about, he really liked the film, but one of his minor gripes was maybe some logic issues, some in-universe logic, like some of the rules they set in this universe, they break. Kind of. I don't know that they did that. I haven't analyzed it deep enough to know if they broke their own rules. But I don't think it mattered, because is it Deep Lens Focus? That's another one that I watch. Another great movie review channel. I'm just going to make sure I'm referencing these people correctly, because that's important, ladies and gentlemen. Let me see. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's called Deep Lens Focus. She put it in such a great way. Deep Focus Lens. The lady who does the reviews in that film, she put it in a great way where she said Zach Kreger is sort of, making such a great meal, and he's just throwing great, different flavors and stuff into the meal that, sometimes crumbs of spilling off the plate and onto the table, maybe even onto the floor, but it doesn't really matter. We don't need to, we can clean that up later, but at this moment, let's just enjoy this delicious meal. She kind of says something along those lines, and I agree. Like, if there is a small little bit of logic problem, if there's a small problem here and there, that, like, the fun of the film, the experience of the fun of the film, like, it's like, yeah, whatever, like, fuck it, fine, like, yeah, okay, some crumbs have spilt over there, it doesn't really matter if we get a little bit messy, let's just enjoy this story. Like, Zach Kreger is clearly just enjoying going on this journey and taking us on this journey, and, like, making us laugh, making us scared, making us everything, because the film is funny. Like, I recently watched Happy Gilmore 2, and I recently watched The Naked Gun reboot, sequel, whatever it's called. I laughed more in this horror film. Zach Kreger has got such a deft tone at, is that the right word? He's so svelte and nimble with his tension, and comedy is about tension and release, and horror is about tension and release, so they are kind of similar in that aspect, and Zach Kreger is able to sort of manipulate both comedy and horror really, really well, where it's not too what's the word? It's not too jarring to go from one to the other. Really, really And I think that about really wonderful films often. Films like Parasite, for example. Parasite had me on the edge of my seat, tense, scared in 1 second, and then laughing hysterically the next second. That is such great direction, being able to flip on a dime like that and make it seem natural and coherent. Zach Cregger does that. He does that really, really well. I think it's a real great testament to his directing that he's able to play with your emotions in that kind of way. Um, there's also something I disagree about. I think some people are reading quite deep into this film, and I don't think the film has necessarily earned the deep kind of analysis that some people are giving it. Some people are saying the hidden message is this, or the scary underlying truth about this, and it's like, I don't think I agree with that. I feel like that's something people are adding to it after the fact. For example, I mean, you might consider this a spoiler, by the way. I don't think it's a spoiler because I'm only going to reference what they've just literally just said in that IMDb synopsis. 17 kids go missing, and the town, try to figure out where and or what happened to them and how. So that's all I'm going to reference right here. Some people are saying that this film is maybe some kind of allegory, some kind of take on what it must, well, on the psychological issues that must occur in a town where there has been a mass school shooting. Some people are adding that to it. It's called Weapons. Bunch of kids are suddenly are not coming to school. And some people are adding that kind of, this is an allegory for a town coping with the tragedy of a school shooting. And it's like, I really think you've added that afterwards. I don't think that was Zach Cregger's idea at all. I think he's come up with a fun initial idea of 17 kids go missing, and he's just taken it from there and gone on his wild, crazy, wacky, journey. And I think people are like subsequently going, this is an allegory for this really deep, serious thing, like the serious truth behind it. I'm like, I do not agree. So that's something I don't agree that some people are saying. You might agree, like everybody takes from films what they take. So that is just what it is. But anyway, I just think the film is absolutely magnificent. Tell me what you thought about the film in the comments below. I'm going to now move on to the spoiler section of the show because, like I say, this film is completely non-linear, and I want to basically explain the timeline from beginning to end in chronological order, just in case you were curious or were confused having seen the movie, how it all works. And it does work. So I'm basically just going to explain that to you right now. So this is your warning, your spoiler warning. This is literally a plot point for plot point for plot point, basic sort of description I'm about to give you. Okay, so that's your warning, spoiler warning, spoiler, 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 spoiler. Okay, so the story, not the movie starts somewhere else, but the story starts with Alex. So Alex is a kid at school, right? So he's at school and his dad picks him up, and his dad's like, so you make out with any models today? He makes a cheeky joke, and it's a father-son relationship. And his dad's also saying, listen, your auntie or your great auntie, your mum's auntie, is coming to stay with the family because she's sick. So that's the beginning of the story. All right. So they get home. Alex's mum is there, and she's like, "Go clean your room. Your great auntie, my auntie, member of the family, who I haven't seen for like 15 years or even more, she's coming, and I want everything to look tidy in the house." Okay. So that night, the auntie arrives. So the next day, Alex goes to school and has a normal day at school, but his dad doesn't collect him after school on this day. So he has to walk home, basically. And by the time he gets home, he walks in, something's a bit weird in the house. And he sees his mum and dad just sort of sat down at a table with they're sort of in a vegetative state. They're zombified almost. They're just sitting there staring gormlessly, aimlessly, with like the life force sort of sucked out of them. And then this is where Alex first meets the auntie, the great auntie, Gladys. Now, Gladys is like, your parents are fine, go to your room. The next morning, Alex comes down, his parents are still sitting there in a vegetative state, life force sucked out of them. And Gladys basically forces Alex to stay quiet and not tell anybody about the parents and how they're just sitting there. When he goes to school, he's not allowed to say anything. And Gladys forces Alex to do so by demonstrating her power. So basically, this is where we see her sort of ritual. So she gets like a thorny stick, she cuts herself, so she's bleeding. And I think the stick has some of the parents' belongings sort of intertwined with the stick. Now, she snaps the stick. She's got a bowl of water there. She snaps the stick. And this causes the parents to start stabbing their own faces. And they keep stabbing their own faces until the stick is dropped into the bowl of water. And basically the command ends. And they stop stabbing themselves in the face. They put the fork down and they just sort of stare aimlessly. So they're obviously under the spell of this Auntie Gladys, basically. And she's got a ritual, and the ritual basically makes these two zombified people do whatever she, I guess, thinks or commands in her brain. So Alex goes to school and he doesn't say a word. And when he comes home, Gladys is like, you've got to feed your parents soup. You know, they're just sat there in a vegetative state at the table. So that's what Alex does. So one night, Alex walks in to Gladys's special room of spells that she's sort of set up in the house. And he sees her without her wig, because when he first saw her, she was wearing this crazy wig. So he sees her without the wig. And she's obviously very, very sick. She's balding. She's got small strands of hair coming out of her bald head, basically. And she mentions that she thought having the parents sort of in this vegetative state where she is, I guess, sucked the life force from them, she thought that was going to make her better, keep her young or whatever it is, but it's just not working. And so what she needs is for Alex to bring a personal item that belongs to every child in his class, all of his classmates. She needs him to bring an item. So the next day, Alex is at school. He decides to skip recess or break time or whatever it's called. And he goes to the classroom, which is empty at this moment. And he's looking for some personal items. And he sees everybody's sort of delegated drawer. And each drawer has a sort of arts and crafty name tag on them. So he decides to take all of them, basically. He takes them all off the drawers and he's putting them in his bag. This is where the story, not the film, this is where the story meets Justine for the first time. So Justine sees Alex in the classroom all on his own, and she's like, are you okay? You've seemed a bit off in the past few days. And Alex is like, I'm fine. And she just offers her support. And And he's just like, I'm fine. Obviously, he's saying he's fine because he wants to protect his mum and dad. So Alex goes home. He gives all the name tags to his auntie Gladys. And then that night, Gladys puts all the name tags ripped up into a bowl, mixes them with spit and other special potions. And then at 2:17, she holds out this little bell and she rings it. And this causes all of the children in Alex's class to get up from bed, leave their house, and run directly to her house, or Alex's house. So Justine, the very next day, walks into her classroom and it's almost completely empty apart from Alex. So the police begin an investigation. So Gladys has to come to the school/police station with the dad, who she's sort of done makeup to hide the stab marks in his face, and even though he's zombified, he's just sat there and she's saying, oh, you know, he's very quiet or whatever. And the police also investigate the house. So Alex and Gladys have to tidy the whole house. She commands all the zombified children who are just standing in the basement, she commands all of them to go into the woods for temporarily while the inspection happens. And then basically a whole month goes by with Alex feeding his mum and dad soup, feeding all of these children downstairs soup, keeping them fed, even though they're all zombified. The parents have been zombified the most, these 17 children the second most. And that is, I guess, the beginning of the story. And then the rest of the story happens over what I believe to be 5 days. Okay? So, almost a whole month has gone by. So, day 1. So, we've got 5 days coming, right? So, day 1, we meet someone called Archer. He's a dad of one of these missing children. He wakes up in his missing child's bed, his missing son's bed. His son's called Matthew. And he goes to work. And he realizes that his job is some kind of construction decoration business, and he realizes he's ordered the wrong color paint. So he ordered red, it was supposed to be green. So he takes all these red buckets of paint and he puts them in his car, and then he nips to the police station for an update, and he's asking the sheriff to look into Justine, the teacher of the class of the missing children. He wants the sheriff to look into Justine because he's already looked into her, and she's got a history. She's got a DUI, driving under the influence, so she likes her drink, and she's had inappropriate behavior with a colleague at her previous school that got her kicked out. And he just wants answers. And then we cut to a town meeting. So the night before, all the children are gonna, like, the school is gonna open back up to all the rest of the children that didn't go missing. But the night before, they're having this town meeting, and Archer is there, and the rest of the parents are all there, and they say, look, we want to hear from Justine. Like, what was she doing in that classroom? So Justine gets up and she tries to talk to the town, to everybody who's in this town meeting. Now, this is actually the first scene of the film, right? So you understand now how it goes backwards and forwards so much. So she tries to talk to the town, but they're just not hearing her, so she leaves. Archer, who's, you know, very angry, like very accusatory towards her, he secretly follows Justine, the teacher. So Archer's following her. Justine goes to a liquor store, of course, because she's got, you know, something with alcohol. She's buying 2 bottles of vodka. Outside the store, she bumps into James, who's a drug addict, who's just lurking outside. He's asking for money, but she says no, and she gets in her car, and then Archer continues to follow Justine all the way home. So Justine goes home, she enters her house, and Archer's outside watching her. And he decides to take the red paint from the back of his car and graffiti Justine's car with the word witch. He then rings her bell, so she's going to come out and have a look. She doesn't come out, so he knocks really loudly on her door, and I guess he runs away. She comes out and she sees the word witch graffitied on her car. So that night she goes to sleep, Archie goes to sleep, and they both have a nightmare, basically. Just a nightmare, I think. Right, so that's day 1. Day 2. Justine goes to school because all the kids that are remaining, they're all going back to school. Justine goes to school, but she's having a meeting with the principal, whose name is Marcus. And Marcus tells her basically that she needs to stay away from the school for a while because the parents are, quite emotional at the moment. And he also asks her to stay away from Alex because she wants to speak to Alex, the one remaining kid. But he says, no, let's leave him be. He has spoken to enough people. He's been scrutinized enough. Leave him be. And Justine just needs to stay away for a while. Next, James, the drug addict. On this day, he wakes up nice and early and he needs money for drugs. So he's walking around the streets trying to pull on car doors, and he finds one car that's open and he steals a bag. He rummages through the bag. It's a children's bag, and he finds like a play tablet sort of iPad-y kind of device. So he goes straight to the local pawn shop where he could swap it in for money. And he's waiting for it to open, so it's still the morning on day 2. The pawn shop opens. He goes in. The pawn shop are like, "No, we don't want this weird tablet device." Also, the same morning, we're introduced to Paul, who's a police officer. Now, he's in the locker room of his, police station, and he's on the phone to his wife. The wife is like, "Oh, I'm coming home early." I guess she's away and she wasn't expected to be home for a while, but she's coming back this weekend. And she's like, "Please tell my dad that we can go to the anniversary dinner or whatever party." So Paul is like, okay. And she's also concerned that Paul's not going to be attending like his AA meeting, his Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. So he's also got an issue with alcohol. But he's like, "I'm not drinking. Don't worry, I'm not drinking. I don't need to go to the meeting. I'll go if I need to." He hangs up the phone. And then he tells the sheriff, the constable, the head, the boss, basically, the boss of the police. He's like, "Hey, your daughter's coming home early so we can come to the anniversary dinner." And then Paul starts his shift as a police patrol unit. He gets in his car and he starts driving around on patrol, and he catches James, the drug addict. The drug addict is trying to break into a building. So Paul chases him down and catches him. However, when conducting a search on James, Paul, the policeman, cuts himself, stabs himself, pricks himself on one of James's drug needles that he's got in his pocket. So he basically pokes his finger, and he's so like mad about this because he might get AIDS or whatever. The police officer punches James in the face and knocks him out, completely unconscious. But Paul, the police officer, realizes, oh no, he did that right in front of his sort of police patrol car security cam thing, and it was all on video. So, in like this day and age where police brutality is really bad and everybody's, catching these bad actor policemen, he's really worried about it. So he tries to bring James back to consciousness, and he's like, I'm as far as I see it, we're even, I potentially have AIDS in my finger, and I did you wrong, you did me wrong, we're even, you can go. I don't want to see you around here ever again, basically. So that's what Paul says. He allows James to go free under the condition that he doesn't show up again. Meanwhile, Justine, who was told not to go and bother Alex, she goes to Alex's house, knocks on the door. However, no one answers. So she tries to peek through the windows, but they're all boarded up with newspaper and stuff. But she manages to look for a very small gap, and Justine, the teacher, she spies 2 zombified adults just sitting in a vegetative state. And that's obviously Alex's parents. So Justine calls Marcus, the principal. Now, the principal is at a grocery store with his partner, and she's like, "You've got to speak to Alex's parents." And so Marcus is like, "Look, I'm going to pretend this conversation never happened. You were not supposed to go to Alex's house. I told you to leave him alone. But so it puts your mind at ease. I'm going to invite the parents to the school, and I'm going to speak to them directly." Next, Paul, the police officer, He ends his shift and he tells the sheriff, the boss, his father-in-law, about the incident with James the drug addict and how he pricked his finger and how he punched him and it was caught on camera. And the father-in-law is just like, hey, let's just hope nobody sees that footage, and let's just hope that the drug addict doesn't come in and raise a formal complaint against you, because hopefully this will just all go away. So Paul, the police officer, leaves. He's had a bad day, and he sees Justine, who's at the police station, giving a report to the police station because she's had graffiti on her car. They wave at each other, and then that night, Justine and Paul meet up at a bar, and they hook up, spend the night together, and have sex. And that's day 2 over with. Day 3, the next morning, obviously, Paul wakes up at Justine's place, and Justine drops Paul back home, and Paul is confronted by his wife, who came home early. So the wife obviously storms out of the house and finds Justine at a liquor store, of course, because she's an alcoholic. She beats her down, and she's like, "You got Paul drunk, didn't you? That's how it happened." She's very angry. Cut to James, the drug addict. He's looking for a house to rob so he can go back to that pawn shop and maybe swap some things for actual money, because he's dying for drugs. And he comes across Alex's house. So he breaks in and he sees the parents in a vegetative state. But, they're not moving. They're zombified. They've got the life force sucked out of them. So he's like, fair enough. And he decides to steal all of the silverware, all of the knives and forks and spoons. And he also walks down into the basement and he sees all the children, the 17 children, but he really doesn't care. He really only cares about, making some money. So he leaves the house with all the silverware. Now, Justine is at the school and she sees Alex leaving and she decides to follow Alex home. She tries to speak to Alex, but Alex refuses. So Justine decides to basically stay outside Alex's house, spying on the house, but she falls asleep in her car. And while she's asleep, Alex's front door opens and his zombified mum walks out in a really creepy, amazing scene, walks to the car, opens the boot or the back door car seat or something. She opens something that we can't see. The zombified mum gets into the car and with scissors, she cuts Alex's hair. No, sorry. She cuts Justine's hair. And that's the end of day 3. Now we are on day 4. Now a lot of stuff happens on day 4. This is probably the main day. Day 4. So this is the next morning. Archer gets out. So Archer's the dad of one of the missing children. He gets out a grid map of the neighborhood and he tries to cross-reference the grid map with the Ring camera footage that he had that filmed his son leaving the house a month ago when all the children went missing in the middle of the night. And so he basically cross-references the direction that he was headed and he sort of draws a straight line on this grid map so we can sort of see where it's going. Cut to James, the drug addict. He's back at the pawn shop with all the silverware and he manages to swap the silverware for some cash. So he gets a bunch of cash, but he also sees a reward poster for any information on the missing kids for $50,000. So he sees that and he's like, oh, I know where the kids are. So he takes the cash that he got for the silverware. He goes and buys some drugs and he does a bunch of drugs and he plans to go to the police station a little bit later. Meanwhile, Archer, the dad of one of the missing kids, he goes to another one of the parents of the missing kids' house in the middle of the day to ask if he can look at their Ring cam front doorbell footage. However, it's a mum there in the middle of the day. And she's like, no, I'm not comfortable with that. We cut to Paul at the police station. Now, Paul gets a really angry glare from his father-in-law. So obviously the father-in-law, the sheriff, the boss, maybe knows that Paul, the police officer, cheated on his wife with Justine last night. So he's worried about that evil stare down that he's getting from the father-in-law. Now we cut to Marcus. So Marcus is having his meeting with the quote-unquote parents, but the parents don't come. Gladys comes in quite an ostentatious, weird wig, weird makeup. And she basically explains that Alex's parents aren't well and that she's looking after them. And Marcus, the principal, he's like, well, I need to speak to them. It's really, they're the guardians. I have to speak to them, or this is going to have to be sent to, I don't know, like child support services or whatever. And she's like, oh, that's bad. And she looks down and she sees all these sort of like tags that belong to Marcus, insinuating she's going to take one of his personal belongings. Anyway, we cut back to Paul, the police officer who leaves the police station, where he was getting that angry glare from his father-in-law. And as he leaves, he sees James. So James, the drug addict, is obviously coming to the police station to just collect the reward and tell the police where the kids are. However, Paul doesn't know that. Paul, the police officer, thinks James, the drug addict, is coming to the police station to raise a formal complaint about police brutality. So Paul is like, no, fuck this. I told you, James, the drug addict, I didn't want to see you around here again. So he chases James all the way back to James's tent. So James, the drug addict, he's homeless. He lives in a little tent. And James is having these hallucinations, maybe from doing drugs, or maybe it's some kind of spell from the witch. But he can see Gladys in like clowny type makeup just there in the woods where his tent is. He gets in his tent. He's really worried that this clowny witch lady is going to come and kill him. And he gets his needles, like his this is one of my favorite parts of the movie. He's got his drug needles, his heroin needles there to protect him, and somebody unzips his tent and he stabs that person in the face. But of course it wasn't Gladys or clown or some witch or anything. It was just Paul, the police officer, who now has 3 needles stuck in his face. So Paul, the police officer, is obviously so angry, and James is like, no, please, I didn't know it was you. Sorry. I thought it was someone else. Listen, I know where the kids are. I know where they are. Let me show you. It's really close. It's in a house nearby. I'll show you where all the kids are. Right. So now we cut to Archer, the dad. So earlier on in the day, he was trying to get the footage for this ring cam footage, but the mother was like, no. So he's just sort of waited outside her house all day until the dad comes home from work. And he asks the dad, and the dad's like, yeah, come in. So he looks at the footage of the ring cam of the kid running away, their kid running away, and he sees the direction their kid's going, and he looks at his map grid, and he cross references and sees where the direction of his kid and the direction of their kid intersects. And the idea is maybe he'll be able to find where they all went. So next, we cut to Marcus, the principal. He's at home. He had that meeting earlier on, but he's at home now with his partner. Now Gladys turns up. Now she's really upset about how the meeting went down, basically. And she's like, can I come in? I need water. I need to come in. So they let her in the house. She comes in. She asks for a bowl of water. And she's like, basically just distracting them until she gets out her thorny sticks, where she's going to do this ritual. And she does it. She pricks herself, cuts herself on the stick, wraps something around the stick, maybe a personal belonging, and Marcus notices it's one of these tags that he had in his office. So Marcus, the principal, is like, I recognize that. She also cuts the hair of Marcus's partner. And so she rings the bell, and suddenly Marcus is in a vegetative, zombified state. And it's the same ritual that she did to Alex's parents. And then she wraps the hair of Marcus's partner around the stick, breaks it, and Marcus then kills his partner. Then she drops the stick into the water and the command is over. He just stops killing his partner. His partner's dead. He stands up. Next, she pulls out the blonde hair that Alex's mum with the scissors got from Justine the previous night. She then ties that blonde hair around the stick and she breaks the stick. And so Marcus is now like her weapon, basically. He's one of Gladys's weapons. And he, like a missile, basically just runs out of the house and runs directly looking for Justine. Next, we cut to Archer. Archer is driving, presumably looking for the area where the children's directions sort of intersected on his grid map. But he sees Justine at a gas station, so he decides to confront her. But whilst he's confronting her, Marcus turns up, running directly for Justine, and he tries to kill Justine. So Archer is trying to like stop Marcus from killing Justine, and Justine manages to escape and drive off. Marcus, the principal, is chasing her in his zombified state, and then eventually he gets hit by a car and killed. Next, we cut to the police officer Paul with the drug addict, and he was like, the drug addict is like, this is the house, and they're at Alex's house. So Paul locks James, the drug addict, in his police car, and he's like, I'm going to investigate. And he knocks on Alex's house. The door opens and he goes in. So James is waiting in the patrol car, waiting for Paul to come back out. But he doesn't come out for many hours. Next thing you know, it's nighttime. James has been stuck in this patrol car for hours. And the front door of Alex's house opens and Paul, the police officer, walks out. But now he's in a zombified, vegetative state. And he comes out. And he's now one of Gladys's weapons, under Gladys's spell, right? So he comes out, opens the door of his patrol car, and drags James, the drug addict, into the house. Next, we cut to Justine and Archer. So Justine, the teacher, Archer, the dad. Obviously, they just had this horrific experience with Marcus trying to kill Justine. So they're both at the hospital having their wounds tended to. And once that's done, they leave. Justine wants to thank Archer, and Archer says, he talks about his theory. He talks about his map and where the kids intersected. He talks about how when Marcus was running, it was exactly the same way that the children were running in that kind of airplane missile state. And when Justine looks at the grid map and where the two directions of the kids intersected, she notices immediately that it's at Alex's house, Alex, the remaining kid, right? So Justine and Archer, the dad, they go to Alex's house. And they go inside and they realize they have to fight off a zombified Paul, the police officer, and a zombified James, the drug addict. Alex is upstairs while all this is happening. And he is getting chased by his zombified parents because he took a step over this sacred line of salt or whatever. So the parents are trying to kill Alex, and Justine is downstairs with Archer, with Paul and James trying to kill them. Justine manages to kill Paul with his own police gun, and then she shoots James and kills him too. And Archer, during this whole commotion, stumbles onto the basement where he sees all the children. So he's like looking for his own son, Matthew. But then he is surprised by Gladys down there, one of the best jump scares of the movie. And Gladys somehow puts Archer under her spell as well. And now Archer becomes one of Gladys's weapons, right? So Archer walks out of the basement, and now Archer is trying to kill Justine. Alex is upstairs meanwhile, and in his final attempt to survive, because his parents are desperately trying to kill him, Alex goes into the secret spell room that Gladys has, the room that she made up for herself to do her spells. He finds one of her thorny sticks, and he decides to spread his own blood on there. He finds the bowl full of all the name tags of the children. So he decides to get Gladys's wig, which has a strand of one of Gladys's few real hairs. He wraps that hair round the thorny stick, and he breaks the stick. And suddenly, all the 17 kids become Alex's weapon, right? And they chase Gladys. So the 17 kids start chasing Gladys, who, is the witch. And they chase her. And this has been happening, this whole commotion has been happening throughout this night, right? So now we are on day 5. The sun is rising. It's the morning. Gladys runs out of the house. All of the 17 kids, zombified, are chasing after her like a missile. And they catch her. She manages to, she's running through the houses, through gardens and stuff. But the kids catch her. They're too fast. They're too ferocious. They catch her and they completely rip her apart. And the moment she dies, her spell on Archer, the dad who was trying to kill Justine, and her spell on both the parents who were trying to kill Alex, the spell is ended. The spell is over. And they stop, basically. So this kind of the end of the spells, really. Everybody stops. Now, Archer was only in a vegetative state for a very short amount of time, so he kind of recovers really quickly, recovers almost immediately, and goes to look for his son. Obviously, the kids were in a vegetative state for a really long time, and we hear at the end of the film that they're not even properly recovered yet. In fact, they some of them have only just started talking again. But the parents, who were in this zombified state for the longest amount of time, it's insinuated that they will never get better, and they are in some kind of institution being fed soup still. And that's the end. That's the timeline completely explained. I hope that made sense. I hope that cleared up any confusion you had. Like I said, it's that whole sort of opening of the story. The whole beginning of the story is sort of Alex, and then it kind of opens with Archer, the dad, and then we basically have 5 days. The 5th day just really being a morning, but we have 4 full days, and then day number 5 is just the morning, basically. And that's how I believe the story, in a linear chronological fashion, is sort of told. But obviously in the film it's completely told in completely different in a different non-linear fashion, and it's great. When you watch that film and you're like, oh, this happens, that happens, this happened, oh, they've gone back there, oh now we're seeing this from this perspective, and oh now we're seeing this person, and yeah, like I was saying earlier, is there some bits where I was like, oh, that's, I'm not sure the drug addict would wait that many days to do this thing. Sure, maybe you could tighten this up from 5 days into 3 days. Sure, maybe you could do that. But it's not necessary. And like I was saying earlier, that I really agreed with Deep Focus Lens was saying, yeah, okay, there's a few crumbs on the floor, but the food was delicious, and it's worth the crumbs. The fun, sort of frantic nature that this feels like it was kind of written and made with such excitement. I'm like, okay, of course they spilt a few crumbs. It doesn't really matter. This was a fucking fun, wonderful film. I hope you've enjoyed this review, probably the longest review I've ever done of a movie. I've never done a timeline explained, but that is the whole storyline. And let me know what you thought in the comments below. I hope you've seen the film. Let me know what you thought in the film. Like, comment, subscribe, and I love every single bloody last one of you.